Okay, so hey guys and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley fighting. So if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into this. This is a fight in which was on my video. I mentioned it in my video of top 10 fights I want to see in the UFC in 2025, and it's taken all the way to June, but we've got it, and it's another one ticked off that list. As just the reason why I wanted this fight was I just think they're both two fighters who are in a really interesting position, and I think stylistic wise they are built similarly. I think they fight relatively similarly, and it will just be really intriguing to see, I believe, because Kamaru Usman is somebody who hasn't fought in over a year. He's not fought since 2023, and he's he's not on the slide because his last performance against Chimaev was really not a bad fight, but he has lost his last three, and so there's no kind of shadowing or hiding that. And I think perhaps he's had a few injuries creeping in and things like that. So, it's not necessarily like he's coming in on the best of form. And like I say, having that long out isn't exactly a good thing either. But he is most definitely a future Hall of Famer. He's a great name. He's one of my favourite fighters when he was fighting as the champion. Like I say, he had some amazing moments. I mean, going back and looking back upon when he knocked out Jorge Masvidal brutally, that was a destructive knockout, or his two fights against Colby Covington, which the build-ups were just so entertaining, and then the actual fights were, living up to that as well. And yeah, just some great moments as a champion. Yes, he only fought, from what I believe, technically three names when he was defending his title in Covington, Burns, and Masvidal. They were still always great fights, and I just really liked his style. I thought he was so well rounded, and I thought he was, an excellent fighter. I think this will be interesting to see if he can still be that same type of guy who he was back then. That was back in 2021, and then the back end of kind of 2022 was when things started going a bit, not, I suppose, wrong to an extent, probably is the right word. Same as with Joaquin Buckley, to be fair. I mean, Buckley lost against Imavov and Chris Curtis via knockout in the end of 2022, from what I can remember. And Kamaru Usman had his first loss against Leon Edwards at that time. And then, as things kind of progressively got a bit worse for Kamaru Usman, Joaquin Buckley has been on a tear, and he's come down to the welterweight division, and he's been on a great run, and he's looked like a completely different and changed fighter. I mean, he was breakout fighter of the year last year. He is riding so much momentum at the moment. I mean, the run he's been on since coming to the welterweight division, he beat Luque, beat Rizabiev, he beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson via knockout, he beat just last Colby Covington via stoppage, and like I say, he's just flipped his whole career around. And at this weight, like I say, he just looks like a killer. I mean, he's always been a powerful fighter. I mean, talking about great knockouts, nobody is ever going to forget the knockout, and I feel like I have to always mention it whenever he goes and fights, of him knocking out Sangane with that spinning back kick all them years ago. But he's actually is making himself just, taking himself away from that just one highlight moment, and he's really making himself a case as a troubling fighter in this division. Like I say, he's on such a great run of momentum, and whilst Usman's been having this time away from fighting, Buckley has been fighting, relatively regularly. I mean, 2024, like I say, was a great year for him fighting. He hasn't fought so far this year, so he's had a few months out himself, but nowhere near, like I say, as long as what Usman's had. I think perhaps Usman could get a bit of inspiration from somebody like a Volkanovski. I mean, of course, he's somebody who has returned from three knockout defeats to then go on to become a UFC champion, and it showcases that you can make a comeback even if you haven't been, first of all, fighting regularly. He had quite a while off, Volkanovski, before he made the return, but at the same time, somebody who can be hurt really badly in three fights in a row, come back and still be able to take punches. And Usman, like I say, wasn't hurt that badly against Chimaev, and in the second fight against Edwards, he wasn't knocked out like he was in the first fight, and so it's yeah, it's just interesting to see that perhaps fighters are getting a bit of inspiration from that kind of Volkanovski story, and 2025 could be the year of fighters kind of making a comeback from seemingly kind of being out on the slide. I mean, if Usman wins this, then we've had Usman and Volk so far, like I say, making this comeback from a few fights in a row, losing. Maybe next we'll see Henry Cejudo. Who knows, realistically? I think it could be a possibility of 2025 being that year. That would be really entertaining, and I mean, I'd personally love to see that. And like I say, from Usman's last performance, he went 3 rounds with Chimaev. It was on 2 weeks' notice. Chimaev, of course, now is a middleweight world contender who went and stopped Robert Whittaker in the first round, and so he to fight him on 2 weeks' notice and arguably be the toughest test of Chimaev's career so far. It was an excellent performance, really, for Usman, and Chimaev was on such a great run. I think there was, just too much in the 3 round kind of distance for Usman to have been classed as the winner because Chimaev was doing too much. But like I say, everybody was talking about if it would have been the 5 round distance, then Usman was definitely creeping into the fight and probably did win that last round. So then when it goes into the 4th and the 5th round, then it should have realistically, well, the momentum could have really shifted, and Chimaev possibly could have lost that fight, and that would have changed Usman's career around yet again. And so that was also what kind of started the makings of having these co-main events as 5 round fights, because there was a couple like the Usman Chimaev fight and the Oliveira Sarukian fight, which really did make the fans want to see 5 round fights for co-mains on pay-per-views. And I mean, obviously, I do believe that Usman is a 5 round fighter. I think perhaps more so of a five round fighter than that of Buckley. Of course, he has much more so experience at that kind of level, and so that will be, of course, intriguing to see if Buckley, if it does go into the 4th or 5th round, how he's dealing with it cardio-wise. To speak about them both individually as fighters, though, I mean, Usman, of course, both of these guys have great strength and great power. They're both got strong offensive wrestling. I would say Usman's wrestling is better, but I think Buckley's is written off a little bit. I don't feel like people give Buckley enough credit for his wrestling. He didn't really want to wrestle against Colby, but there's no real surprise. Colby, that's his best attribute, and when you're completely destroying him on the feet like Buckley was, there was no real point trying to go and try and wrestle against him. And so, it might be a bit of a different story against Usman, because I think they're both really well-rounded, and so I think they're both going to be striking, they're both going to be willing to wrestle, and so again, I think it's just going to make a really great just clash of styles. He's got accurate straight shots. I mean, just some of the straight shots in which which he's landed in his career have just been brutal, and the fact that he can generate so much power from a straight shot is really impressive as well. If he gets you in a clinch, he won't let you out, and I think that could be something that could be damaging to Buckley, because I don't think he's the best off his back. His takedown defense is really good. I think Buckley's is good, but I don't think it's as good as Usman's. He moves you with punches as well, Usman, and I think Buckley moves you with just a rush of his offense and just running towards you, but Usman actually moves you with the power of his punches. His negatives about him, I would say perhaps he can maybe give up the back / maybe leave openings if you can get onto his back. And I think he doesn't actually get you off his back that well. I mean, Chimaev was sticking to him in that first round against him, but his takedown defense is still really good, even though he got took down on multiple occasions by Chimaev. That was the first time in which he'd been taken down in years, realistically, and so it was just credit to how good Chimaev was. I don't think he likes to fight at the highest of tempos, Usman, and I think he does have a bit of a minimal output, which could go against him against somebody like a Buckley. He can stay in range too long, and I don't think his head movement's the best. Of course, that's when everybody looks at the shot which Leon Edwards landed on him. His balance when kicking isn't the best, but Buckley doesn't really throw a tremendous amount of kicks, typically, unless he does that spinning back kick again. He can be quite wild when swinging, and when he's loading up, it can be, like I say, a bit wild and come from quite far. So I think Buckley's kind of uptight, tenser hooks are better, even though they both fighters do fight a bit tense and not seemingly crazily kind of fluid in their movements. It would probably benefit Buckley a bit more. And yeah, that's just my opinions on Usman. Speak about Buckley as a fighter. I think he's obviously a big combination thrower. I don't think that he's got enough power to land these one punch knockouts, but a lot of the time it is constant combinations that he's wanting to be throwing. He gets inside, he forces you back, just like say by rushing into you. Not necessarily the best of things, but he does force you back by it. His takedown defense is decent as well. He was managing to stop and stuff Colby a lot of the time, but I think Colby in that fight looked really poor, so I don't want to look too much into it. He has his head off the line well. He's got kind of a nice bouncy type of explosive style. He changes levels well. He beats you to the punch. He's got them fast hands. He's got a good jab as well. I think that is something, again, which is a bit underrated of his. But I think Usman's jab, again, is really good as well. So, again, it's the clash there. He is willing to lean on you. And like I say, I think he's got good fast hands. Negatives about him, I think his countering and his back foot fighting isn't the best. I think it will be interesting to see if Usman is able to get him on the back foot and see if he can do that by possibly landing a punch, and then how Buckley will react off that. He doesn't make the most of always dominant ground positions. Yes, he stopped Luque by ground and pound, but Luque just sat on his back and didn't really do anything. But I just don't think typically he makes the most of good ground positions, even if he gets there. He doesn't get off his back that well either, and that again might be interesting to see if Usman can get on him. He rushes in with his hands quite low typically a lot of the time as well. He'll rush in throwing shots to the body, then come up to the top. And so if Usman can land a shot when he's rushing in throwing to the body, then he could really get hurt. He doesn't get out of the clinch that well. He doesn't really lock up subs the best. I don't think he's gotten a professional submission in his career so far. I'm not entirely sure if he has. And like I say, he doesn't throw a tremendous amount of kicks. Who do I think is going to win? I do think that Joaquin Buckley is going to be able to win via TKO in round 2. Like I say, I feel like we're relying on one big shot from Usman, and I think even if he does try and wrestle with him, I don't know if it'll be enough. I think the speed of Joaquin Buckley could cause Usman some problems. I think the head movement could cause him problems as well, and perhaps if he goes to the body to switch it up to go to the head, which he always likes to do, that could lead him to actually stop Usman. And I think Usman, if it grows into the later part of the fight, like I've touched upon, then I would say that Usman definitely has the upper hand, and as a massive fan of Usman, I'd love to see Usman go and win this fight and return back to the top names in the division. But I just see at this point, with Usman again having this much time out, that Buckley, his style, his power might be too much for Usman, and like I say, especially the speed might just be too much for Usman, and then I think he could get caught with a shot, similarly to like how he got caught with a shot versus Leon Edwards, just probably not a kick. And then, that puts Joaquin Buckley completely, like I say, flipped his whole career around, puts him in a position arguably for a title shot. I mean, will he get one? Probably not, because there is a bit of a queue and it's a bit of a mess what's going on in the welterweight division at the moment. I mean, we have Della Maddalena, of course, fighting Makhachev, and then we're going to have to wait and see what happens then. I think Makhachev's then going to possibly come back down to the lightweight division. I'm not entirely sure. Mohammed might fight Rakimov still, but Rakhmonov is still in and amongst the names, one of the top guys. Of course, Brady's also there waiting. He's just beat Leon Edwards convincingly. He's there ready waiting. Ian Gary's another name there ready waiting. I would love to see a Buckley versus Della Maddalena fight, even if he loses to Makhachev, because I think that's two really good boxers and that could make for a really interesting fight. But it wouldn't surprise me if Sean Brady ends up fighting Joaquin Buckley if he wins against Kamaru Usman next. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.